Unmute myself first of all. Let me quickly share my screen. So you guys should be able to see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. So welcome everybody to this session today. Me and my colleague Andre is doing for you guys the community session, and our subtitle is today Business Intelligence Meets Business Automation. Sounds like a little bit like a buzzword challenge, but there's really some substantial stuff behind that. And we hope we can reveal a couple of things you might did not know yet, and also give some appetizers to dive deeper into the integration we built for a Tableau. All right, so first things first, we also created agenda for you guys. And we will be first talking about the what. What is it, what we're talking about? What is an integration and what kind of types you support? For the guys who are so familiar with UiPath, this is probably something you might have heard of already, but this is something where we talk about the what. It will take about 10 minutes before we come to the why. What is it what we're doing? So the why behind that, and this is something really important in my opinion, because sometimes, and even I forget about, that is super important to have in mind why we're doing things. So whenever you speak to a superior, to a customer or whatsoever, this is really the main question, why we should do this. And this is why we spend like a big portion on that, like 20 minutes, where Andre will speak about use cases, the problems we're solving with that, but also with benefits you guys having from that. And after that, we're gonna do a quiz and a very, very short break, but the quiz time is actually also the break time. So we're gonna do 2 questions, and so listen carefully. As Andrea mentioned, there is a prize to win. And after that, we'll focus on the how. When you guys are signed in for this session, I read a lot of comments that you guys are interested how it is done. So I prepared a demo, a full end-to-end demo, where I'm using an integration, a Tableau integration together with an automation where we do some purchase order and send out some notification and so on. So we spend like about 20 minutes on that before we go where to find documentation. And there is also developer support and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna spend like 5 minutes on that because it's super relevant for us to enable you guys as well to build this stuff on your own. And then we will have an outlook for one of the next series, should be rather quick. And then we will have our quiz, and we hopefully can announce a winner. So the whole session will last about 70 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoy the session, and let's just kick it off. All right, native integrations. What is this? You might have heard about native integrations, but let's have a look what UiPath is offering from a full automation perspective. First of all, and I'm sure everybody knows about our UI automation capabilities, and we have pretty strong automation capabilities for automating web UIs, but also desktop UIs. But we also have support, for instance, for computer vision. And this is a true game changer, for instance, if you have, for instance, application running in a Citrix environment, where it's technically not feasible to grab controls and identifiers and stuff like that. So that's pretty powerful, and it's definitely a pretty cool support for your automation efforts. And of course, we're also using AI in all different of areas, for instance, for document understanding, right? So the most obvious thing we do with that, with UI automation, is doing manual repetitive stuff and let it a robot do. But in order to do so, we also need to enable our robots to understand actually what's on the screen there. And therefore, for instance, techniques like document understanding are really game changers. But what we are here today is about native integrations. And native integrations can be like in 2 different ways. One is like to UiPath, and one is out of UiPath, right? We have like rich integrations for Salesforce, of course, also Tableau, Workday, and so on and so forth. And they are built and supported by us. So we built them together in collaboration with our technology partners. And our third pillar is actually you guys, our wonderful partner and community members. I mean, I joined UiPath like a half year ago, and I was really, really impressed about the community, how helpful you guys, how supportive. Just need to look in our forums, but also the integrations you guys are building. That's really fantastic. And we constantly try to give something back because that's really very valuable for our company. And for instance, the voucher today is just a little thing where we try to give something back besides the community session itself. Last but not least is custom integrations. And every company out there, if you look around, it's like a software developer company. It's like a software company, right? No matter if you're in retail, banking, or whatsoever, they all have their own R&D departments. And of course, it makes a lot of sense to integrate these custom applications, for instance, into UiPath in order to run a robot. And you can build that on your own. And this is something we help to support with toolkits in order to leverage our open platform. So you guys can just plug in and run robots directly from your mobile app or web UI, whatever you're building. So this is like the overview about our automation capabilities. And so these native integrations allow us to really automate more. It is really about end-to-end automation. When we talk about a business process, of course, you start at A and go to the very end. And sometimes you don't even have a web UI or a UI label, but there is, for instance, a backend there, right? And then you can utilize these backend integrations, for instance, to do a full end-to-end experience of your processes. And as already mentioned, we have 30 plus of these integrations, and they're all built, maintained, and supported by us. And they are not only to get some data out of system A and push it back into system B. The real goal, what we're doing here, is also to shift UI automated processes also to an API layer. Meaning what you do today, for instance, in Salesforce, could be tomorrow you're doing on the API layer. Why is that helpful? Because API integrations run a lot faster. A process executed via APIs is like 50 times faster than on a UI. It is a lot more stable because not only because we can skip the entire UI stack, a browser seems like a natural thing for us, but actually that's a huge technology stack actually when we speak about automation. So when we can shift that completely to the API layer to a native integration, that's a lot more robust. And also APIs are typically built to stay, meaning also the maintenance efforts will be a lot lower than having like a new automation. But it is also on the other side, it's a little bit harder to build than the obvious, but it's just the capabilities we support. And we do that together with our tech providers. Like I'm on like at least weekly calls with our tech providers where we try to find the best experience for the products we're building for you guys, and we collaborate also to have like best security standards and best practices in order to leverage their, but also our open and flexible ecosystem. And by doing this is just allows us to give faster time to value and better results for deployment, for instance, and also a robust governance capabilities, as already mentioned, because the integration does not need the full web UI. For instance, you can run like an SCP process without touching the UI. So you don't necessarily need to roll out the full UI for that, right? And yeah, and we also support these offerings from A to Z. So this is really a very important piece of our entire automation experience in order to achieve, our fully automated enterprise story. And this is really something where UiPath native integrations play a major role besides other. And as you guys know, there is a lot more we do, like Automation Hub and, all this process mining and stuff like that. So this is out of scope today. And today we're focusing mainly on the native integrations. And at this stage, we can have already a look at what we're doing together with Tableau. And of course, number one, we are partners, as already mentioned. We all do them together, and we built like this two-way integration where we have these so-called activity packs, where we reach out to Tableau from a robot, and also the Tableau extension for UiPath, where you have the extension in Tableau in order to reach out to UiPath, for instance, to start a process. So like on the right side, this is the activity packages we host on our premises, and then the extension in Tableau is hosted on the Tableau extension. But I will give you more detail in the end of the session about all the documentation we provide for that. And there is like an endless list of use cases you can derive from this wonderful integration. And like the start order process, which will be part of my demo today. But you know, me and Andre, we did some brainstorming a couple of weeks ago, and we really had to shrink it down to the bare minimum because we don't have endless time, unfortunately. But we hope that we can give you some insight and some ideas what you can do. And at this stage, I would like to hand over then to Andre. And in order to do that, Andre, I need to give you the controls so you can, yeah, you have the controls now. You should be able to click the slides. Let's just do a check. Yeah. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. I mute myself.
Thank you, Robert. And hello, everyone. And thank you for attending the session today. For today, we wanted to take this chance to present some of the use cases that we think will bring value from integrating Tableau and UiPath. And we've chosen 5 main areas where each use case is located, and that is reporting, view data, triggers, update the data, and reordering. With focus on reordering, this is going to be the demo for today. With that being said, let's dive into the first use case. Now, what you need to keep in mind is that some of the use cases are going to be able to be developed by using the UiPath Tableau Activity Pack, which Robert will mention a bit later, and some will be can be achieved with the UiPath extension for Tableau. All right, so the first use case that we had in mind was PowerPoint reporting from Tableau. Now, from a business perspective, I'm sure that most of you are aware that most people, they don't resume themselves to just going into Tableau, looking at dashboards and getting their information. There are often times where people will go to Tableau and then they will find their views or dashboards that they are interested in, and then take that information and create a PowerPoint out of that information with relevant business metrics. What we had in mind is to automate that whole process, since that process takes a fair amount of time. You have to go to Tableau, you have to open Tableau, find the views, and then automate, put the data into the PowerPoint. So as a step-by-step approach, how would that look if you would use Tableau with UiPath? It would look something like the user would identify the views and information that he wants to add into the PowerPoint template. We assume that you have a template that you use in order to create these slides. The user will have a robot that will be triggered in order to populate the template. At this point, once the robot is triggered, the robot will do the following. Robert, can you please go to the previous slide? Thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, the robot would read the dashboard that it's pointing to, would capture the views that the user wants, and would save them as pictures. Once this is done, the robot would then go to step number 4 and open the PowerPoint template and populate it with the information from Tableau, and then do the formatting accordingly to how the user wants. After all of these steps are done, then the robot can also send an email to all the managers or users that the end user wants to, and also attach the PowerPoint. We estimate that the benefits for this would be that 80% of the effort would be automated. Of course, there is also, you need to take into consideration that it's a bit of formatting required, and that the time to create the PowerPoint is reduced from more than 1 hour to a few minutes. And we also estimate that it would take, depending on the skill, of course, and the knowledge of the developer, it would take 1 week to develop the robot and a few minutes to configure everything. And of course, for technology, it would be Tableau, where you would have the dashboard developed, PowerPoint for the slides, and Outlook for the notification. Now, as a summary of what I just mentioned, so the major pain point is that you need to create on a monthly or quarterly basis the slides to how the business is performing, which can be time consuming, especially to fit everything and to look nice. So the solution for that, it would be to automate the whole process and have a robot go to Tableau, capture all the details, and after that, create a template. The results, of course, would be a reduced time and an increased time in spent on reviewing the data with your peers. All right, now let's move to the second area of the use case, which is the view data functionality from Tableau. In this use case, we wanted to highlight the following business logic. Oftentimes, people they go to Tableau, they have a view where they have their business metrics, and they use the view data functionality in order to actually download the data that is aggregated in the view that they want to choose, and then use that data that's going to be downloaded as CSV, use that data for further analysis or even reporting. So in the case, if you are doing reporting, then you can think that all the process can be automated. And how would that translate into steps? So the user would identify the data set that he wants to download from Tableau, and then he would trigger the robot that would go to Tableau, would go to the view, would trigger with the query the underlying data and save it as CSV, and then the robot would open the CSV, and based on the process that you have in mind and the reporting that you want to do, would do that all those steps instead of view, and then it would save the report. And after this, the report can be attached to an email and sent to yourself or whoever needs to have that report. The benefit from this is that you would have a reduced effort in doing the reporting, and then you'd have a reduced time, and it can be reduced from maybe more than 1 hour to a few minutes. The technologies used here would be, again, Tableau, because this is the main tool that would be used for dashboarding, and then Excel for the report creation and Outlook for notifications. And for this use case, the main problem would be that you would need to do all these manual steps of going to Tableau, going to download the data and perform additional analysis for reporting. And the process can be time consuming, and of course it has room for error. And as the solution for that, it would be to automate all the process and to have a robot that handles everything in this case, which translates in reduced effort and time and can increase the accuracy of the results of the report. Now that we covered the second part, let's move on to the third part, which I find it to be quite interesting. And this is a use case that is referring to trigger notification based on thresholds. So what does this mean from a business perspective? You can imagine that there are moments where you have a view, or you have a, let's say, a trend line or a chart that shows different business metrics, and you would like to be aware if value from that business metric would change past a certain threshold or below a certain threshold. So that would benefit greatly from using Tableau with UiPath. Why? Because we can think about automating the whole process instead of having the possibility to go to Tableau. Having the possibility to go to Tableau and look at that view every time. With this, we would be able to have an email notification with the view where we have that threshold. So how it would look from a step-by-step approach, it would be that the robot would scan the underlying data from the view that you want to get the snapshot. Then the robot would be triggered. So the robot would be configured to be triggered if a certain value is below or above a threshold. And the robot will read the dashboard and the view that you selected and save it as a picture. And then the robot can also be configured to read the group of users that have permission to view the dashboard and use this list to send an email to all the users in the group with the view attached and with additional information. And the real benefit of this case, it would be that you can have real-time information as opposed to having to go to Tableau and having to open the dashboard and looking at the values. So yeah, as I mentioned, for this one, the main pain point is that not all the times people can be aware that some values have changed, and it would be they have to be diligent in order to go to Tableau from time to time and check the numbers. This can be cumbersome at some times, and the solution for this would be to have robots that would be sitting in the background and would be scanning from time to time Tableau, and would then generate a set of snapshots and send them via email. And this would translate in reduced time. It would be a reduced time to check the view, and increased time to focus on other areas that the user needs to focus. Moving on to the next one, the next area, which is the update data. The update data sources, it can be achieved by using the integration of UiPath extension and Tableau. And how does this translate in a business perspective? Imagine that you have your business users that are connected to the Tableau dashboard, and they have access to a tab that contains parameters. And with those parameters, they introduce their data, and based on that, they can do, let's say, forecasting or planning or other activities. And sometimes they would also want to save that data in order to use it maybe in other files or applications. So in this case, by leveraging the integration, the user can go to the dashboard. He can identify the fields that he would want to save for a future use, and then he would trigger the write back robot. Now, what this trigger means is that the robot would read the dashboard, would read the specific lines where the change has been applied by the parameters, and then would trigger either an insert or a store procedure or save the data in an Excel file. It depends on what is the data source that has been set up for Tableau. And then the robot can also proceed to update the dashboard's data source with the new information. Let's say that we would want to also show that information in a new tab. And then the robot would be able also to send emails to the data team and to the dashboard owner saying, look, that the data has been updated. And the business benefits would be that 90% of the effort would be automated. When we say effort, we mean that the manual effort to go and update these numbers, and the data insertion can be done very fast. And as for technologies used, would be the Tableau for the dashboard part, and Excel or SQL database as a data source, and of course Outlook for the notifications. And in this case, the main problem is that maybe the user wants to update the data with some of the information from the parameters that are present in Tableau, and they have to do this in a manual way. And the solution would be that you have the extension of Tableau of UiPath, and you can use the robot to do this behind the scenes to save the data and populate it, which translates, of course, in a reduced time, and it can translate in increased accuracy, since maybe we don't have the manual update anymore. And this brings me to our last use case, which is going to be presented extensively by my colleague Robert. But before I hand it over to him, I would like to spend a few minutes to talk about the business problem. So when we are talking about inventory reordering from within a Tableau dashboard, we are actually referring to the fact that you're using Tableau as a reporting tool. So you have in Tableau, you have created some views that helps you to track information about your inventory. How many items do I have? What is my stock? What is the forecasted dollar value amount that I could get out of those inventory items? And what actions do I need to take based on this? And most of the times people would go then in SAP and they would have to log in a new order. What this so this is beneficial for Tableau and UiPath integration, because we can automate all these steps. So basically you would have the robot that would sit in the extension, and it would pick up the item that you would want to order. It would go to SAP, it would trigger the order, and then it would also update the information, the data source that you are using for Tableau, and then it would show it into the dashboard. And then after that, you can receive a notification for Outlook, and also to be informed on Slack that the purchasing has been successfully placed. The business benefits, of course, would be that it would take 95% of the effort would be automated, and the reordering time and switching between views can be reduced from 20 minutes to 1 minute, and an estimation of an ROI of 4 months. And in this case, we estimate, again, based on the knowledge of each developer, about 1 week of development, and the technologies would be used Tableau in the demo that Robert is going to show, SAP BAPI, and then Excel inventory as the data source, and Outlook and Slack for notifications. And with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Robert, who has some fun part for you prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre, for this wonderful presentation of these use cases. There were some questions in the chat, and the question is, I think we have some time in the end where we'll answer these questions if this is okay for you guys. So I would go now into the quiz, and I hope you guys find it also funny. Let's see. So let me just share this. So I'm not sure if you guys know how it works, but let me just start it here. So let me just go into present. It's the first time I'm doing this. So yeah, hold on a second. So, all right. Okay, so guys, please just go to menti.com and use the code 15606290. And this is the people already joining. So I was a little bit surprised about all these symbols. So that's actually you guys. So I'm happy to see you, so many people joining already. So let's wait a couple more moments before we kick this off. Still people joining. Remember, there's a voucher to win, and maybe very soon you're the owner of some UiPath sockets or a hoodie or whatsoever. All right, still people joining. A few more moments. Okay. I don't know, is this, Andrea, do you know, is this, does it mean still people are joining, or is this just some animation here?
Yes.
Still people joining.
It's people joining.
All
So you
right,
can see the number at the bottom.
Oh,
We have
yeah,
70
thanks a
now.
lot. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, man. So many people.
So let's give probably 30 more seconds.
Yes. So I hope I don't mess this up. No, but should be pretty straightforward. I practiced it a couple times before, so. '89. Do we reach 100 people? What do you think? Weber, huh?
Yeah, we will reach 100 people, and then probably you can, yeah.
Yeah, but it looks stable now with 90. I guess we just kick it off now, right?
Yes, let's start. Yes. Yes.
All right,
Let's kick
90 is good as well. So 89, let's 90, kick it off. I hit enter now. So the first question, and by the way, I'm Austrian, so that's the reason why I have this question here. What is a native integration? A, Austrian yodeling skills. B, using web UIs to connect to systems. Or C, using APIs to connect to systems. 3, 2, 1, time's up.
You have to answer on menti.com, not on the chat.
Oh, yeah. You have to answer in the app, right? But 66 people answered it correct. Nobody picked yodeling skills. That's good. All right, guys. So when we talk about a native integration, is not using the web UI, it is accessing directly the APIs of a system. So we skip typically the UI layer. Cool. Next question. One more question, and then we continue with the presentation. All right, let me start. The next question is, what is a good use case for the Tableau UiPath integration? A, database backups. B, inventory stock reordering. C, fix security issues. Or 4, doing denial of service attacks. So time's up. Yeah, perfect. Oh, one person thought it's good for denial of service attacks. You could build robots to do that, but that's something we do not recommend. All right, guys. So this was the first part, and the second part, and the last two questions will be answered will be asked in the end of this presentation. And we continue now with the automation and also with the demo pretty soon. All right, so we're coming to the how automations get connected to an integration. So first of all, let's have a look on the entire UiPath Tableau integration. First of all, and there was a question in the chat already, so we support both the cloud and the desktop application. So you can attach this extension to desktop and cloud. And if you do that, then you can read data directly from the dashboard and hand it over to robots, meaning you can run a robot in a context or at a queue item in a context. So that's pretty powerful, because then you save all the time from taking the data and filling it in somewhere else. It just gets handed over completely directly. And then the extension is connected to the orchestrator, where you can run a robot. For instance, in order the robot can do then connect to Tableau by the activity pack, for instance, to download the workbook or get a view, for instance, directly from the Tableau API. There is where you would use the activity pack. And of course, we also have some standard activity connectors where you can update Excel sheets, MySQL databases, Oracle databases, and so on and so forth, in order to loop back some information back to the Tableau dashboard. So you don't need to do that manually. So that's pretty cool. And once more, this is the process we're going to automate. And first of all, I will be a user who does the inventory dashboard. And when I identify something, there needs to be something to reorder. I have attached, or I will show you how to attach a robot to this in order to kick off this process, where I do via BAPI, meaning I'm not doing your automation here. I'm really using the native integration into the SAP ERP and do a purchase request. And why is that important? Because if you do that manually, this takes about 10 minutes. And if you automate it via UI, you can automate it, you can bring down this process to like 2 minutes. But if you're using the BAPI, it's a matter of seconds. So that also will speed up the entire process of the purchase order. And then we will be doing updates in the data sources where our dashboard is connected to. As already mentioned, this could be also SQL or Oracle, whatever your Tableau dashboard is connected to. And then we need to inform myself if the purchase order was successful or not, sending over the sub-order ID, but also informing stakeholders, like I do with the Slack notification, sending out that everybody knows that there are some ordering took place. So maybe for the ROI question, because I've seen there was a question in the chat, how do we calculate this return on invest is a very good question. And therefore, this will vary, of course, because what we do is typically we take the time we save for each and every action. For instance, for this reordering, we save like 19 minutes. And then we do some simple math. Okay, we save per action like 19 minutes. How often we do this? Then we say, okay, we do this 5 times a day. Then we calculate 19 minutes multiplied by 5. Then we include also, okay, that's the amount of time we use, for instance, every month. Then we combine this with the salary, and then we say, okay, what we need for that, and then it's license cost, but also implementation costs. And when we have both things there, then we say, okay, if we make use of this integration, then the return on invest of the investment is about after 4 months. Of course, this varies and depends on how many people are using the automation. The more people using this automation, the faster you will hit your ROI, for instance. So I hope that clarifies a little bit how we make these ROI calculations. And also, like for the implementation time, especially in the SAP context, I have some really good colleagues here supporting me with the BAPI automation. But it's always good to have like good contacts with sub developers, for instance, or whenever you need to build automations, it is always good to have friends on the other end. You can reach out, for instance, to ask questions, because sometimes when you do something on the API layer and you don't get immediate access, for instance, it is good to have somebody to ask why something is not working, because sometimes there is also missing privileges you have, and so on and so forth. So always bear in mind, make friends with inside the organization, because that could be very helpful when implementing processes on API layers. All right, so it's demo time. Let's have a look at this. So first of all, here is my Tableau dashboard. I'm using the desktop version, and the way you install extension to Tableau is here. You take this from extension and you simply drag and drop it onto your dashboard. So when you drop this, this window will pop up, but that's Tableau functionality. And I can see already 80 downloads. That's pretty nice, guys. So maybe we can make this a little bit more, like maybe these kind of numbers would be fantastic. So in order to install the integration, which is hosted in the Tableau extension gallery, you just click on it and click here on Add to Dashboard. So what you get then is like a quick starting view, which describes what you do in order to get started. Like click on the down arrow in the extension menu, right? Like this is this one. Select Configure and so on and so forth. So I click here on Configure because I need to connect this extension now to our UiPath orchestrator. And therefore, I have multiple options. I can create the connection only, but I will start immediately with create a job, because what I want to do is I have here this forecast board, and I have here this inventory forecast, right? Meaning, depending on this board, I will see in my inventory the products I have. And for instance, like for this product, I have a low quantity, meaning I have only one remaining item, but I read a high forecast. So I should do some action here. I should reorder some new products. So I should do a purchase order for this. And this is exactly what we're going to do here now, right? So I create a new job and I call it order items. So I just copy this one because this is the start button, and the start button will appear here. So the start button will be directly in here. You will see that in a minute, where you can trigger your robot afterwards. So that's why we have a start button text. Then you save, go to next. And this is where we connect to our UiPath orchestrator. And therefore, I need to create a new connection. If it's already configured, you just could pick an already existing one. And I call this cloud because I'm using my cloud orchestrator, but this would work also for on-premise. There is just slightly different configuration options. So this is Robert org. That's my organization I'm using. That's the tenant, this modern department. That's how my tenant is called. And then you need to provide the API access keys. And this is where you can find them. I just quickly log into our automation cloud platform and use this account here. So I'm having here my modern department instance. Let's make this a little bigger. My modern department instance, and here is my orchestrator. And when you click here on API access, then you will see that we have client ID and user key here. One thing I need to make you guys aware of, that this functionality will be deprecated with 21.10, like in a half a year, and then we're gonna switch the whole thing to OAuth. But for now, it's this API key integration, but in a future version, you can expect to have some OAuth, which is configured with the external application. But this is something out of scope for this today. And I see some people want to connect with me. All right. So I will pick now client ID and paste it in here. And then I also will pick the user key and paste it in here. And just to give you guys more context, I will just log into my orchestrator now. And you can see up in the URL here, that's the robot org, that's the organization I'm using, and that's my tenant, the modern department. And then there's one more important thing. I've configured a folder here where all my processes are available here in this folder. And that's why we were using here unattended folder. So we directly connect here to this unattended processes folder. And I can try out my connection now. Perfect. So I connected successfully, and I can save this connection and can move to the next stage. So here in this at this stage, I can configure a robot, a job, or a queue. If you guys are not familiar with queue items yet, it's something you should do, because that's a pretty cool feature in order to just push data onto the orchestrator, which later a process can pick up and process afterwards. For instance, on a daily schedule, for instance, a robot comes and processes all queue items. Don't get confused. That's not the job queue. It is a queue item. This is something you should get familiar with if you are not already. If you run more than one job, there is a queuing in the orchestrator anyway, so you don't really need to care about that. So I'm picking here a job now because I want to run the entire order process. So I can pick now, create Tableau suborder. And this is, remember guys, this is exactly this process I just picked. Meaning this is just another view to my orchestrator. And that's what, and I'm already done here. I'm using a modern folder here, meaning the modern folders are a lot smarter than the classic folders. You could theoretically pick a robot, but I just leave it empty. The orchestrator will pick an available one in order to execute. So let's go to the next one. This is where we map the data, and that's an important piece, for instance, right? Because we connect here the worksheet, which is the inventory forecast, where I would like to do the orderings from, with the process field. And you can see here, this is one process field, which takes over a data input argument. And in case you have some key value pair input mappings, after picking that process, they would be listed here. So let's have a quick look at the studio. So for the ones you are not familiar with UiPath Studio, and Studio is all the design time happening where you design processes, all these automated processes. For instance, you can download packages, for instance, for Tableau, just by typing this in here, search for Tableau, and then you just click that and install that. I've already installed that. So when I click, for instance, in available and I go to integrations, I could pick, for instance, these Tableau actions and just drag and drop it into my process. So this is for all the integrations we have. And this is how you can build or attach additional integration packages. So my process, that's the overview. When I click in Tableau, the start button, it will hand over the process, the process arguments, and will create the suborder. And if the suborder was successful, it will update the data sources in Tableau, which is in Excel, send out email notifications, and then send Slack notifications. So let's have a look more detailed here. Here is the process argument, and that's an important piece here. Remember, this process argument, that's the process input argument, which I picked here actually, right? So whatever you have here in the input argument will be listed also in the extension. And then I just map these input arguments. I have here for debugging purpose a dummy table. But what I basically do, I take from these input arguments the product ID and the quantity of items to order, meaning I will then just order of this product ID, for instance, like 5 items. Once that's done, I write this into Excel sheets, and then here the subsequence starts, right? So it reads the data from the Excel sheets. It connects to the orchestrator to get the credentials. I have here a connection file. You don't necessarily need to do that, but just in case, if you have to support different environments, that makes sense to have the connection string somewhere in a text file. Then we connect to a sub, for instance, and it's the same way I drag and drop this into my project. For instance, the sub is here, so I more or less just drag and drop this over, where I just do the purchase order, and we have all the design experience for all the integrations are all streamlined. So it will look very similar and familiar with also other integrations. And then as soon as an order is successful, or for instance, if it fails, I send out an email notification to myself that the order has failed. But in case it is successful, I will update, for instance, Excel sheets, let's make it a little smaller, and send out email notifications and Slack messages. So this is how the process looks like. And yeah, let's just move on here in Tableau. So when I click next, I'm done with the configuration of my robot. And as you can see, the button order items is already available. Right now it's gray. So I need to select something. For instance, here I've seen there is low quantity, but a relative high forecast. So I should do some action and reorder new stuff. And once you can see here, I have sub order ID. As part of my process, the robot will also update the data source. And once the process successfully ran, I will have the sub order ID directly in there. Plus, I will have the amount of ordered items. Which is not part of this process is that once the order has been delivered, we could remove that and add it to the existing quantity. Okay, so let me just log in quickly into my unattended robot here, so I can see also what's going on. So I'm using an unattended robot. So when I click here on order items, I just get the feedback that the order has started successfully. And remember, once I'm done with this process, right? So I just identified what I need to do. Then I just triggered the process. And after that, the sales order will, the purchase order will take place. And in the end, it will update data sources and will send out email notifications and all the Slack message. So this is all happening now in the background. I just can continue now working here in Tableau, and the robot is doing the rest for me. So as soon the whole thing is done, I should get some notification here per email. Let's take a little bit. I can see the process is already done. It might take a second here. That's the email I just received. So, you know, this information was taken from the dashboard. So this is actually the product ID, and it created the sales order in SAP. And it also tells me how can I open it, how I can open this. So let me just quickly open SAP. Let me sign in. So, okay. I tried a couple times the wrong, but it's worked obviously. So I'm choose this transaction ID, and then I use this order ID, and I should see the order we just did. So here it is. That's the order we just did for the item 10, and we ordered 5 items. I don't actually need to do that because I got the confirmation from my robot. So that's the entire time I actually I saved doing that. All right, there is one more thing to do, right? So the order took place, and I can go now to my data source. And when I refresh my data, I should have now the ordered the sub order ID in here, but therefore I need to wait until the data source gets updated. And I'm using here this one. Can I refresh here? Okay, yeah. I think and update this. So thank you, Demo God, right? I practiced this 100 times before, but now obviously, just give me one more try. Okay. If you would use, for instance, an Oracle database and not an Excel sheet shared with OneDrive, then you probably wouldn't run into that problem. Let me try to update it. All right, thank you OneDrive for messing up my demo. So probably I should switch to another one. Maybe in the end I can show you. Oh, that's a pity. But actually it should now update the suborder ID and also add the quantity to this um, section here. And I don't know why it's not updating. All right. Okay, let's continue with the presentation. Maybe it's done in the end and I can prove it did it. All right. Apologies for that. So the second part of the how is where you can find the documentation for that, for all this, what I just showed. First of all, the activity pack, you can find it, it's documented on our UiPath docs under activities. And if you guys, if you have feedback or whatsoever, please reach out to integrations@uipath.com. We're always looking for feedback, and we are happy to, to improve our products, of course. And this activity pack is about running a robot reaching out to Tableau, for instance, to download images, PDFs, workbooks, or whatsoever. You find a lot more details under this documentation there. Then we have the Tableau connector, which I just configured in my presentation. And as already mentioned, this is hosted on the extension gallery. But as you have seen in Tableau, when you start and drag and drop an extension, you just probably need to search for it, UiPath, and then you should be able to attach this extension to your dashboard. And this is where Tableau reaches out to UiPath in order to start a robot or to add queue items. And what it is basically doing is the authentication. You can run jobs or add queue items. So that's about our connector. And of course, we're happy to support you guys, but we cannot support all of you guys. So we have introduced our connector developer support portal. You can find it uipath.com under /developer. And this is purely focused on developers. And we are currently reworking and restructuring this a little bit, but it's accessible and available, but it might look a little bit future, and it will be evolving a little bit in the next couple of months. But what you can find there is how you can create these activities, custom activities. For instance, if you have like a custom service where we don't have an integration yet, you can do that. Or also, for instance, if you want to integrate a robot execution into your web UI, for instance, then you learn how to create a connector for that. And we have SDK support for that, but also like API service definitions and for our orchestrator service. And last but not least, we also have a Postman collection out there, which you can reach on the postman.uipath.rocks. And it's also linked in our support developer portal. And what we're doing there is not only showing all actions the orchestrator provides, but what we're doing here is focusing more on use cases, right? You guys probably want to start robots and not explore the entire API with its 2,000 calls. But what we're doing here is we document more or less, for instance, how to start a job, because you need to get a folder first, then you need to map the folder ID, and then you need to get the releases, because this is what's required when you want to run a job, for instance. And that's all documented in this Postman documentation. And we really focus with that on try to keep it simple, really on the most relevant use cases, to be clear what this is about. So not like endless of documentation you need to go through. It's really focused around the use cases. And we try to make also the functionality clear what this is about. And it's also about accessibility. And the most important thing is that we provide examples in there. And you can get quick start, right? So if you look at this, there is on the left side, you see the processes documented. But the really cool thing is this button over there. When you click, for instance, on running Postman, you can download this documentation to your local Postman installation, where you can have all these examples as part of a Postman collection. And this should give you a jump start to try out things. You know, everybody knows about the Hello World example. And this is this kind of experience where you get something working as quick as possible. Yeah, all right. That's it from my perspective now. And as the last thing I do here is the promotion before we go into the quiz. So today we have our Tableau session now. Then on June 10th, we have about how to automate mainframe and other legacy systems like ServiceNow. On the 24th of June, I will be presenting again our Salesforce connector and also Salesforce activity pack, how to automate across all other platforms. And on 1st of June, there is for SAP SuccessFactors another session. All right, I hope you guys are ready for another quiz time. And before that, I just try to update that and see if it worked. Oh, here it is, right? Thank you. Thank you. I don't know, to update this, you see here, it worked with looping back. This is something I definitely wanted to show you guys. So let's have another quiz time, guys. So there's 2 more questions, and I hope you guys are all ready for the 2 remaining questions we have. So please go back to your phones. You should be still in the browser. There is still people joining, 76, 77. So let's wait to reach at least 80 people. All right, guys, so let's get this started. Okay, question number 3, guys. What is true for activity packs? With activity packs, you can trigger robots, you can download views, or you can delete dashboards. So what is the right answer here? Time's up. Let's see. That was a little bit confusing, but I got you guys, right? So the activity pack is something where you reach out to Tableau, where you can download views and stuff like that. The connector I was talking about, which I attached to the dashboard, this is the connector. And with the connector, I can trigger robots. Okay. So next question and last question. Hope you guys are ready. So what is not part of UiPath docs? Is it Postman API documentation? Is it Mrs. Chang's Western Cookbook? Or is it UiPath docs developer portal? So let's see how many people like cooking more. Oh man, is that a, what the hell? Okay. Oh yeah, oh man, I was wrong. It's a not, it's a negative question. So I'm sorry, guys. Okay, you are absolutely right. I actually fall into my own trap. So let's see who won. That's the leader dashboard. And looks like we can announce a winner. Mukesh, Kala, congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm really happy I managed this quiz somehow here. It looks like I'm not a perfect quiz master, right? Can't even remember my own questions. But yeah, Mukesh, please reach out to our team and let them know you won the prize.
Yes, I think we are old friends, so he will know who to contact. If not, you can always write us to community@uipath.com for your prize. Congratulations and thank you everyone for all the answers.
Time
So we
for
still
Q&A,
have
right?
the
Yeah,
Q&A. Yeah, exactly.
Let's do some Q&A. I think we can.
I saw some questions there in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Just Andre, go ahead and answer the questions you want. I also have.
Yeah, some of them were were actually from my part, so that's why. So to start the first, so the question from Ali, you already mentioned, Robert, about ROI calculation and about the fact that it takes into account multiple factors from how many people benefit from the automation and so on. And to continue to Oleg's question, all the use cases that were presented refer to Tableau Online, to the end user part where you already have dashboards published in Tableau Online, and you would go and you would get them from there. Should the robot constantly run in the background when you say the robot scans underlying data? So the robot would be connected to Orchestrator on a virtual machine that, yes, would run on a background and scan for the data. So
let me add one thing, is
please,
you would
Robert,
probably
yes.
introduce some polling, meaning if there is nothing to do, the robot will start for a second, look into the data and shut down again, right? So only in case there is a trigger, it really would use the license actually, right? So it's not like it's constantly blocked, right?
Correct.
But sorry to interrupt you. That's just something I
Don't
wanted
worry.
to
Yeah.
address.
Thank you for your information. To continue with Harshit's question. So is the trigger functionality not available within Tableau? In Tableau, especially in the online section, yes, you do have access to create alerts, but they are at this point a bit limited, that you need to go to an axis chart. With this, you can create a robot that would use the Tableau activity pack, would go to the view, download the image, and it would send to you via email, based on, because everything would be based on the underlying data. So that would be the case here. And it wouldn't be through the UI, it would be through the API connection. To continue with the next question, is robot triggered using Orchestrator APIs from Tableau whenever some values are changed? So like from the question above, yeah, you would set the robot in Orchestrator and it would scan for the underlying data and would be triggered, or else it would just sit there. And does the robot run 24/7? I think this is up to the business use case.
That's what I already answered, I guess, right? It was with the polling, I think.
Sorry, yeah,
I
was
think
not
so,
aware.
at least.
Well, anyway, yeah, what I wanted to say is that you need to program your robot based on the business needs of your team. So it not necessarily needs to run 24/7.
There's one more question. So it will not work without Orchestrator? And that's a good question. There is some technical limitations, right, with the Tableau extension. So we cannot call localhost, right? So we are actually a browser application, and that's a security mechanism actually, which prevents us to query the local host. Nevertheless, we're still exploring this to make this happening, but we understand that this is a very well use case to run this without Orchestrator. Everything I showed now is with Orchestrator, so it works perfectly with unattended robots. And with attended robots, there is something we need to further investigate and explore. But so far, we didn't find a way to do that, right? So you would have to use the assistant still to do that for the unattended, for the attended. Okay. Do you see any further questions, Andre? Oh yeah, there are. Oh man, I have to scroll.
There is one that is for how about Power BI? Can we use API to trigger?
In the future, can we expect integrations with other BI tools? I mean, theoretically, yes. I cannot give you a roadmap update on this yet, but depends, of course, also how this integration does, and depends also on the needs from a partner joint venture perspective, right? I would say you can expect additional integrations because, as already mentioned, this is a very important part to enable the fully automated company. So I would say you can expect it, but I can't give you any time of arrival or something like that, right? But this is clearly something we would support also in others as well. You know, we have like connectors for Salesforce and so on and so forth, but no other BR tools yet. But let's see. Okay.
Okay, I saw that Oleg added some other comments, and maybe it was a mistake from my side, Oleg, that I didn't fully understand the context of your question regarding. I would be interested if you could unmute yourself and bring a bit more context on. Is it either if you were referring to a specific use case or if you were referring to the demo that Robert presented?
Andrea, are people able to unmute themselves? I guess so, right?
Yes, everybody is able to unmute themselves.
Oleg mentions he can't. Right?
Try
Oh
again.
yeah, no, I can.
Oh,
Yep, all
perfect.
good now. Yes, sorry.
Awesome.
No. Yeah, the demo which you showed was clearly Tableau desktop, referring to the Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, and in organizations usually, you know, they use Tableau online and publishing all dashboards online. So I was wondering, is any integration with Tableau server is available?
Yes. For your understanding, the integration itself is hosted in our premises, right? We have like an application server running where this extension is more or less hosted. So wherever you install this plugin, for instance, on the desktop or in the cloud somewhere, this extension can call our, the extension can call our service. So we tested it, and of course that works also with the cloud version.
Okay, yep, thank you. I just need to double check whether our on-premise Tableau server can talk to the on-premise orchestrator. So that's
Yes, there might be
Yep.
some networking hurdles theoretically, but you know that you're able to call our app service. But this is something you can handle internally. You know, that's a connectivity thing that could be between you and the app. But we built it to run in both, right? So if it's not, just reach out to this email address here and let us know. But
okay.
we support both.
Thank you. Yep, fully answered.
You're welcome. All right. I think we're pretty done. So did we miss something? Maybe, you know what we can do is, I think we can, Andrea, you can send over all these questions and we take a second, you know, we walk through these questions, and I think this email address should be attached to your questions in case we were not able to answer. Then we'll try to answer the question offline then. And if not, then please reach out to us anytime, integrations@uipath.com. We're more than happy to get your feedback on this. And by this, I would like to close this session, and I would like to thank you all for your participation. You guys are awesome. We're so proud and super happy about our community, and see you next time. I hope you
Thank you, everyone.
enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for participating.